Alright YouTube, so we were back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake. So as I'm sure the majority of you are aware, a couple days back we got the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 4. Which is super exciting for people that are fans of that franchise. It's not something I'm super into these days. I've said it before on the channel. I played the absolute shit out of the first game way back in the day. And for whatever reason, even though I was really into that first game, never touched the rest of the franchise up until Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. And for several different reasons, I just really didn't care for that game. I actually did a review some years ago on the channel for that game. But mostly it came down to I just wasn't the biggest fan of the gameplay. A lot of the areas were small, and there's nothing wrong with the linear game, but it felt like generations old because of how long it took for Part 3 to come out. It felt like I was playing a PS2 game when I was trying to explore. But also the lack of a Coliseum and Final Fantasy characters just completely ruined the experience for me, because that's one of my favorite aspects of, one of my favorite memories of playing the first Kingdom Hearts game, going back to the Coliseum, trying the higher ranks, fighting Final Fantasy characters, seeing Final Fantasy characters throughout the story. And the game just lacked that. I just wasn't a fan. And also a smaller reason why I didn't enjoy the game, and it's completely my fault, has nothing to do with Kingdom Hearts 3, is that I just didn't know what the hell was going on from not playing the franchise. Like, I played the first game, missed everything in between up until Kingdom Hearts 3, so I just didn't know who the majority of the characters were. I was like, what the fuck is happening? But that's completely on me, of course. Now, that, of course, is just my opinion, though I have seen people that were big fans of the Kingdom Hearts franchise that were also let down by Kingdom Hearts 3, but there are also people that absolutely love the game, and there are people that are still playing it to this day. The point of all this Kingdom Hearts 3 preamble is that I'm not overly excited as of right now for Kingdom Hearts 4. We get some more trailers eventually. If I see a Final Fantasy character in a trailer, boom, probably gonna buy it. If I see a Coliseum in a trailer, boom, probably gonna buy it. But as of right now, this is interesting. This is pretty cool, seeing like these very realistic graphics. The Quadratum, I think is what it's called. It's apparently a location or whatever, a setting from the secret ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, but also with the Remind DLC. From what I just researched for this video, something I was completely unaware of. It looks pretty cool though. The graphics are pretty impressive. Especially for Kingdom Hearts, which is very cartoony. But why we are ultimately here today with this video is that while we don't know a whole lot about Kingdom Hearts 4, at least currently, we don't have a release date and stuff like that, we do know some stuff. And one of the things that's being reported right now, at least according to Famitsu, translated by VGC, is that by the time of release, Kingdom Hearts 4 will be on Unreal Engine 5. And why that's important to us here on the channel is that it may pertain to Remake Part 2, because Remake Part 1, Kingdom Hearts 3, and Kingdom Hearts 4, at least as of right now with the gameplay and shit you're seeing in the background, is all done on Unreal Engine 4. But if there's eventually going to switch Kingdom Hearts 4 to Unreal Engine 5, maybe they're going to do the same thing with Part 2. So we're just going to read this whole section really quickly from VGC that says, Square Enix has reportedly said that Kingdom Hearts 4 gameplay that debuted on Sunday will be upgraded to Unreal Engine 5 for the game's final release. That's according to a Famitsu report from this weekend's Kingdom Hearts 20th anniversary event held in Tokyo, Japan. According to the publication, the KH4 footage shown in its debut trailer is running real-time in Unreal Engine 4. However, the game's development team is currently testing Unreal Engine 5 in parallel, it's claimed. The full game will be made with Unreal Engine 5, and the quality of lighting and detail will be several levels higher, according to Famitsu. So as we step into the discussion of whether or not Part 2 is going to be on Unreal Engine 5, we got to take note of some dates. For one, Remake came out, obviously, April 2020, but Kingdom Hearts 3 came out January 2019. Now, why that matters at all is that that's a year and like a 4-month window for them to already start working on aspects of Kingdom Hearts 4, right? And they were also working on the Remind DLC that came out like a year after release of Kingdom Hearts 3. But still, that's a pretty big window for them to at least start theorizing and coming up with something for Kingdom Hearts 4, maybe even developing some parts of it. I don't know. That being said, however, it was confirmed in November 2019 by Nomura that they were already working on Remake Part 2. So they were already working on Part 2 before Part 1 even came out. So it kind of depends on where the Remind DLC's development process lines up with the development of Part 2. But also, while Nomura did say in November 2019 that they had started working on Part 2, they didn't actually enter full development on Part 2 until summer of 2020. So it's pretty hard to say with any real certainty how far along either game is in the development process, but at least, again, on paper, Kingdom Hearts 4 should have already been started on before they started making Part 2. And why that matters is that if Kingdom Hearts 4 is actually further along than Remake Part 2, and they're going to switch it over eventually to Unreal Engine 5, I don't see why they couldn't also do that with Part 2. And that being said, I don't think that Kingdom Hearts 4 is coming out before Part 2, regardless of how far along in development it is. Where one of the main problems lie with this discussion is that when it comes to Remake, and I don't know if the same can be said for Kingdom Hearts 3 or 4, Remake Part 1 was made on a custom version of Unreal Engine 4, so it's not just regular Unreal Engine 4, so we don't know how that factors into the development of Part 2, but also, if they have a custom version of Unreal Engine 4, can you just switch that over to Unreal Engine 5? Because one of the good things about Unreal Engine 5 is that you can just take your Unreal Engine 4 works and put them into Unreal Engine 5. It's supposed to be easy, I guess, as far as game development goes, but I don't know how easy that actually is. But can the same be done with a custom version of that engine? I don't know. So to me, that's like a big factor here, because if they took UE4 and customized it and tweaked it and changed it up to work for Remake Part 1, I don't know how simple the process would be of transitioning that to UE5. I just have no clue. One other thing that might be a bit of an issue, at least according to the VGC article, is that they claim that Square Enix is testing UE5 with Kingdom Hearts 4. Now, if they're testing UE5, I don't know how likely it is the Remake would also be using that, because Remake's, again, already been in development since November of 2019, full development since summer of 2020. And if Part 2 is theoretically coming out next year, 2023, they should be most of the way done with it, right? It's just been like the last several months or a year kind of tweaking it, looking for bugs, glitches, polishing the game, stuff like that. So at this point, if they're most of the way done with Part 2, I don't see what the point would be of switching to a new engine entirely. Except to make the game maybe look prettier, which I wouldn't entirely hate, but again, not necessary. Something else that could probably lean towards Part 2 remaining Unreal Engine 4 is that they're developing on new technology, right? With the PS5. There's a reason Episode Intermission was PS5 only, so they could kind of test the waters there, figure out what it's like to make games and make Remake on the PS5. So if you're factoring in that they're working on a new platform, PS5, also the scope of the game should be a lot bigger than Part 1. We're going to be exploring the world and shit like that. And on top of that, if you throw in the fact that they would attempt to use a new engine, I feel like there'd be a lot of problems there, right? There'd be a lot of things hampering it. If they were to switch engines in the middle of development, that'd probably slow down the development process because they'd have to relearn a new engine. Even if the transition from UE4 to 5 is supposed to be simple, it's still a new engine. I guess something else that we could add to this conversation is how long have developers had their hands on Unreal Engine 5 to kind of test it and work with it, right? We learned about it some time ago, but the devs and shit like that would probably have access to it long before it ever went public to everybody. But also we know, at least here recently, that Square Enix has this sort of working relationship with Epic. You know, the PC version of Remake is exclusive to the Epic Game Store. Obviously, Epic owns Unreal, so maybe Square Enix got some like early exclusive access to Unreal Engine 5, a little bit of tinfoil hat there. I don't know. So who knows how long they've been working possibly with Unreal Engine 5. So maybe it's possible the Part 2 could be using it. I don't know, man. I think the best thing here, at least in my head, just looking at time frames and everything like that and how long Part 2 should have been in development, it's probably best to just stay Unreal Engine 4 and then going forward, Part 3 and beyond, however many games there's going to be, probably switch over to Unreal Engine 5. But that's just my thoughts. I think prior to the reveal of Kingdom Hearts 4 and us learning that it was going to be using Unreal Engine 5 eventually, I think the discussion would have been like 50-50. Some people would have said yes, some people would have said no. But I think now that we know that, I think the odds are a little more likely. I just don't know how likely exactly. But of course, my dudes, that is going to be the video, so I want to pass it off to you guys. So when it comes to the discussion of Remake and Unreal Engine 5, what are your thoughts on that? Knowing that Kingdom Hearts 4 is eventually going to be using it, how do you think that affects the development of the Remake project? Is Part 2 going to be using it, or are they going to wait till Part 3 to start using Unreal Engine 5? Other than dudes, that's going to be the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys already want to see more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @YT. I'm a Discord. Links to social networks are in the description. Into the outro. Later, guys. Also, can we talk about the fact that they chose to use the word despair in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, which gave me some instant Sephiroth vibes.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.